We're live on the internet.
Good evening, everybody. How are we doing?
I'm good. Are you good?
Good. All right.
How's the Festival of Lights treating you, my friend?
It's treating me very well. I've got my little menorah here, a little jangly thing on it. But happy Hanukkah to everyone who celebrates.
I started working on about 2 hours before the show. So, okay, you know what? I'm going to do a holiday wreath. I'll have it go all the way around the screen. I'll get a little menorah in there. And then I realized our background color, green along with blue and red and everything, it would be a mess and no one would be able to see anything. And it would basically look like the angry cat lady hoarder house on screen. And I decided not to.
Nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. What are you drinking this evening? You have a very orange, very colorful.
A dark 151 rum with mango juice. It is.
Oh, that sounds good.
It's very summery.
Surprising.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, the mango juice. Well, surprising. Absolutely no one. I'm going with some just straight. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everclear. Everclear, is that the stupid proof? No. This is Cleveland Underground bourbon whiskey finished with sugar maple wood.
That sounds
delicious. Nice, sweet little finish. Yeah, Cleveland Underground does some nice, nice expressions with different woods and stuff to finish. So.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was thinking of going with whiskey, but I did a 7-mile walk today, and I didn't eat anything until about an hour and a half ago. And I don't really think I drank much of anything. So even though this is a good amount of alcohol, there's a lot of liquid. So I've got that, and I've got water over here. So we're trying to stay hydrated with our alcohol.
Yeah, we were outside for most of the afternoon.
I'm not a scientist, really. That's not.
No, me neither. It was amazing, though. We were outside for most of the afternoon and came back and were surprised at, how a little bit run down we were after, the whole afternoon outside, given that who spends, all that much time outside anymore.
Oh, yeah. It is definitely, it's one of those, I think the Baird in me is getting ready for hibernation.
I see what you did there. Wow, we need a sad trombone. Well, I need one of those little soundboards, the little with the buttons. Wah, wah. I'll get Timmy Lewandowski to record one for me.
We've got. I'm excited because we're not ready to put all the announcements out yet, but I said at the end of last week's episode that my goal was getting us out of the weekly cadence of telling people who's going to be up the following week, a day or two after the show, and getting everything set up. I think I've been able to finalize all but 3 shows now between now and the end of the season in February. So I don't think we're going to make the full announcement until those last 3 are taken. But at that point, I think we'll share. I can't even say how sort of excited I am, because we live in the folk community, so we talk a lot about music. I mean, that's a very central part of every conversation that we have, and sort of the life of creatives, particularly in the pandemic and everything else. But at the heart of it, this entire experiment is about community. It's what it takes to make, build, foster community. That's what I care about. And because we love music tends to be at the heart of it, but it's not a prerequisite by any stretch.
Right.
So I'm excited. We've got the community manager of what at one point was almost a million person online role-playing game. We have the president of the Mass Council of Human Service Providers, who basically is an organization that literally is the mouthpiece for every essential social service worker in the state of Massachusetts. They are the people that advocate for and make sure that as a collective, that unit is being treated fairly. So we've got some really interesting people that we're going to be talking to. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. It's going to be a heck of a season.
But that being said, none of them quite as interesting as tonight's guest. And that is in some ways, obviously, just the lip service that you give to the guest is there. But this is someone who we have known we've known well for about 5 or 6 years. We've known for probably about 8 years. We've known of for 15, like a long time.
Yeah.
And she became close friend really in the last 3 or 4 years. And man, I'm excited about the conversations tonight because we're going to be talking about community in all of the most interesting ways. In her involvement in the Philadelphia Folk Song Society and the Philadelphia Folk Festival specifically, and what goes into making a 30,000 person event work.
And I think that number is conservative too.
And in the best of times, I feel like making an event that size work is crazy, but to be able to do what they did this year and move virtually just was truly astonishing. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that she and the organization, has been able to do that while promoting probably the most diverse, and I don't mean this strictly from a, LGBTQA. What was the pronunciation Heather and Chris used? The Jibukwa, I can't remember.
I do not remember.
Or racial or gender, though all of that's just a diversity in presentation. What they do is they pull from, in my mind, the heart of what folk music should be. They're going to have jazz. They're going to have gospel. They're going to have world music. They're going to have tube and throat singers. They're going to have, and what our guest does that makes her just uniquely qualified in the entire world is she finds a way to get the tube and throat singer, the jazz band, and the didgeridoo to play together in a way that everyone listening will say, well, that's exactly what I've been missing my entire life. So I think that there's an aspect of that I'm so excited to talk about. And that's kind of a long-winded introduction. Maybe we should just bring her on.
Let's do that.
Okay. Lisa Schwartz.
Lisa Schwartz, everybody.
Wow, I'm verklempt. What an intro. And gentlemen, underdressed because I'm drinking tea. But earlier tonight I did have some incredible Kinsey single hive whiskey distilled in Philadelphia. So shout out. Most people do not know that the John in Philly is whiskey distillery. But got my swag, my Philly
Philly Folk Festival.
Great tea in it. So how are you, my dear friends?
That's always an interesting question in this time of existence. I think I'd speak for myself and say I have a house over my head. I've got a job, and I've got enough things that I'm passionate about to keep me moving forward. And I think right now that puts me in as good a spot as I really care to measure myself against.
Yeah, it's a conversation that Ethan and I have had, and I've had with my wife and kids and stepkids. It's been a really hard 9 months. I was talking with my daughter earlier tonight. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen her in at least 2 or 3 months right now, given all the restrictions. She's down in Connecticut. She and my son. And she was having a real hard time of it with Hanukkah and all of that, and saying it's really hard right now and things suck, and it could be a lot worse, and it is just starting to get better. So kind of grateful for the things that we all have, and again, as Ethan had said, roof over our head and jobs and all of that. So how about you? How are you all?
it's sometimes I think I'm an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert, in that like both of you. I mean, you're both artists, performers. You're also presenters, but I'm a servant leader. I'm chairs of boards, and I'm a do-gooder to my marrow and my bones. I love nonprofit work, but and I love people, but I somehow feel like perhaps I don't know, uniquely prepared or qualified to deal with what's going on right now. Maybe because I have such great internal dialogue. So it doesn't matter if there's no one else to talk to. I just have a little chat with me. I remember, God bless, I inherited that from my mother. I think it's genetic. My daughter asked me the same thing. She was like, oh my God, I thought I was grandma the other day. I asked myself a question and then I answered it. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So, but to both of your point, I have a roof over my head, and company when I need it. My husband isn't on the golf course, and Zoom meetings more than any of us should ever have to have. That being said, I find myself saying things like, can we go old school, and can you just call me, but, and health, we have our health, and that is critical path when so many people are struggling right now.
In particular, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the meme that's been going around this week, basically the top 10 days, individual days of American deaths, and go through the biggies and the obviousies: Galveston, Texas, flooding. You got 9/11, and by the time you get to 4 or 5, it's last Wednesday, last Thursday, last Friday, and there's man, every moment that I get, and I've had them. I've had those moments where I get frustrated and I want to go run around in a mall without a mascot or something stupid like that. And it's just sort of those moments of frustration are always tempered by those realizations and the moments that come with it. And we're in the process right now. I think they're saying we're at the sort of 2 week out from Thanksgiving, and just the numbers are getting astronomical.
It is, I think the thing that gets all of us is the deniers. It's like, come on. I mean, does it, it's like, how big does the house have to be that falls on your head before you actually believe there's no place like home? I mean, this stuff has to stop.
My cousin Hillary's a nurse anesthesiologist, and so she's in the room, when people are intubated, when people are gasping their last breaths. And not to get too dark, but she has said she has literally watched people go as they are screaming, "This can't be happening because the virus isn't real. I cannot be dying because the virus doesn't exist. So this is just not happening right now." It's insane.
we as a species have not necessarily evolved. If you go back and read about what happened in 1918, here we are again. But I will say, what has come out of it, as you guys were talking about in your lead-in community, the extraordinary resilience of our community, our industry, even though it's been, it's basically been gutted. Artists are still finding a way. They're finding a way to create. They're finding a way to connect. They're finding a way to commune. And, organizations like NERFA, like Folk Alliance International, like Folk Song Society, like, so many others all the regions, Far West, Swerfa, Surfa. I mean, it's amazing the kinship that's created through the sharing and the enjoyment of music.
And one of the things that we've talked about with almost all of our guests since we started this was there is the stealing a phrase from the band Bears Den. They wrote a great song called Laurel Wreath, where the gist of the song, the hit of the chorus is "You don't have to be lonely alone." And what I have truly felt through this experience is developing deeper relationships with people, in particular, because you're talking about our community, and there are people that I adore, I love, that like you, but you're people I see 2 or 3 times a year. I see you at NERFA, I see you at FAI, I see you at Philly. Mm-hmm. And when I say I see you at Philly, mostly I see the blur that is you at Philly.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So it's one. Those are wonderful times to see these people that mean the world to you, but they're also limited just by the form factor. Whereas now I'm taking time. Willa Mamet, who is our first guest this season, and a dear friend of mine. We had been what I would refer to as great acquaintance friends for years. We talked, whenever we knew we were going to be in the same place, would reach out to each other ahead of time, would be like, we're going to have time. We're going to make time. We're going to there would be that great sort of, yay, I get to connect with Willa, but never because of the framework of where we saw each other. It was never a, let's sit down and have a heart to heart for 2 hours. And the two of us have spent dozens of hours on Zoom calls together, just going over life, talking about things. And I found, that has been the weird, thick silver lining to this experience, is the developing relationships with people that I adore, but because of the way the world worked and the fact that a lot of us type A's are always running from thing to thing to thing, it's given us a real opportunity to have more deep conversations. And I I'm not saying it's an even trade, but when you're looking for the silver linings, to me, that's one of the most defining ones.
Oh, I would have to agree with you. I don't know if it's because we're all just that much more vulnerable right now. And I've had the exact same experience. I do a lot. I'm very lucky to have very, very close friends that are in the UK and elsewhere in the world. And one in particular, as you would say, I mean, we're incredibly close. I mean, when we're together, it's full on and all in, but in the context of conferences where each of us has other things we have to do. And now we do Zoom calls, and exactly what you just talked about with what you share with Willa, where it's stripped down to the basics. It's just like, what are you eating? What are you doing? What kind of, oh, you took the dog for a walk. I mean, it's so incredible the capacity we now have to really want to connect and share. And I saw that at our festival this year when we moved to a completely digital delivery. And there was a level of intimacy that was created by the artists, the likes of which I have never experienced. And it never, ever, ever would have been possible with, and I bring to mind, Molly Tuttle and Devin Gilfillian, who they would have been on the big stage. They would have been on as they were on in a digital format. But both of you are familiar with Philadelphia, and not unlike a lot of other, festivals. The main stage it's very large. It's 5 feet in the air. There's a pit in front of it. There's a keep crowd protection.
Right.
Molly was right there, and she was stunning. I mean, she's always stunning, but how she was able to create these incredible moments with, even though we had this digital chaperone, it was just, it gave me, you know, I started to refer to it as the grace of technology instead of here. It started to be the grace of technology for me, because it's allowing us to connect on such an incredible level if we choose to do that.
There's an interesting, you know, in intimacy and divide. You know, we've talked about the artists that have struggled through this because there is no applause, there is no feedback. You know,
Right.
I before in the before times, I played in a band every week, and if the audience was just flat and not paying it, and it's a bar gig, but it's a 10-piece rock band, if the audience isn't paying attention, then all right, it's a fine show and the band's fine. But the weeks when people were applauding and drinking and singing and dancing are the weeks that, you know, it just was a stratospheric show. And so there are some where if you don't have the reaction, it's tough. But at the same time, as you said, you know, the intimacy of those things. And I will mention Adam Ezra, not just because he was hanging out watching the video, but he's been doing it nightly for 200 God knows how many nights, and has built this intimacy with the fans that he regularly has anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the medium, there is that the fourth wall's there more than it ever was before, and it's also not there at all, because you can chat with your favorite artist, you can request a song, you can talk with the fans, and to your credit, Ethan and I had talked a lot about what Philly was going to look like, because we knew the lofty goals that you guys had and what was that going to look like, and it was incredible to watch because you broke that fourth wall and made it accessible.
Well, I mean, there's something about the, I think they call it the threshold. You know, we were the first over the threshold. We were the first ones to do it. So I think a lot of people, myself included, were like, okay. No, I mean, all kidding aside, you know, we, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead for wherever you want to go, Ethan, but there was never a moment where we said, where Justin Nordell, our executive director, or the board of directors for the Folk Song Society said, yeah, we're just not going to do anything this year. We'll send out that, you know, we love you, we want you to be safe, see you in 2021. It was basically, we're gonna figure out how to do this, and it required deconstructing our event basically on tablets of paper, on legal tablets or writing tablets, and then going to the technology partner, you know, and the technical director and production director that we, Sam Bolenbaugh, work with, and saying, can you do this? And he was like, well, we can do anything. It depends on a couple of things. One, time, and two, money. So, you know, and you know, there it is. The, you know, those two ingredients, time and money.
And two things, one of which you asked if you're jumping ahead, and you said that as if I have a plan, which is so kind of you. I always appreciate it when our guests think that those things. I think our MO is basically we have a conversation. I might have a couple things in my head, but half the time I forget them, so it doesn't really matter. But you know, what you guys did with the festival, I think the Philadelphia Folk Festival, And in fairness, you aren't alone. There are other folk festivals that have done a really good job of breaking the fourth wall in real time, in person. And Jake and I have the close relationship specifically with the Falcon Ridge Folk Festival, and sort of the fact that 9 out of 10 times, whoever was closing down the main stage, you will find them sitting around a campfire up the hill 2 hours later. I mean, it's a similar thing. That being said, you guys have had quite a few moments in the in-person, one of my favorites being this one.
Oh, Langhorne.
Yeah.
He was so incredible.
Climbed right off the stage,
Yes,
climbed over the grail. It was fun watching your security have a coronary at the time. That was
yeah. Well, that is not an unusual occurrence at Philadelphia. We've had a couple of instances going way back with the Blind Boys of Alabama, where one of the gentlemen went backwards off the stage, and our security, everyone in production knew that he was going to go into the crowd. The security did not. And so it was our volunteers are just so stunning, especially the ones that are around the stage. They're so incredible. But that was an amazing moment. Margot Price did it too. But it's funny you pick that. There is such a desire now for the artist to want to get closer. Obviously, this was August 2019, pre-COVID, that want to get closer to the audience. They really want to connect in a very, very profound level. And
I think, from an artist perspective, if I speak as an artist, I think we're all going to only want to do in the round shows for at least a year after all this crap is done, because we're just going to want to be right in the middle of the thing.
Sure.
And to be fair, I do believe that is one of the sort of tenets of the folk scene in general, is I can't think of many, at least what I would think of personally as successful folk artists, that thrive on the creation of the fourth wall. Almost all of them are about, at least, if not breaking it, then at least giving the appearance of transparency.
Right.
Sure.
But that being said, what you ended up doing, what you guys were able to do in the virtualizing of the festival, there were those great moments. You mentioned Molly Tuttle, and the sort of great sort of conversational side of what she did, which was so much fun to watch. But you also opened the door for creative, kind of goofy and fun, the milk carton kids.
I was just thinking, I knew that's where you were going. They were stunning. They were amazing. They had so much fun with it. And, as I was calling around to all the, major agents, the Paradigms and the William Morris and High Roads and so on, and, that this industry is all about relationships, and I feel very lucky to have built relationships. I have built relationships with a lot of the artists themselves. Never go direct. So talking to their agents or their manager, and saying, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." It felt like yet another Spanky and Darla moment. For those youngins watching, the Hour Gang.
We're going to have to explain that.
Hey, we're going to put a play on the barn. Mom's going to make the curtains, and it was just, especially given the window. I mean, it was literally the first press release for the digital festival went out. I believe it was May 12th, and the first show was August 13th. So that was my window. And so I'm calling the agents, and they're saying, "What?" It's like, "Well, yeah, this is like, what?" It's like, well, can you send me anything? Yeah, it doesn't exist yet. Well, can you tell me a little more about what you're, and so I was I could not be more thankful to these agents and and the artists, their teams that took this leap of faith. And so we would have these conversations about, like Shaky Graves with another one. Shaky reached back and said, hey, said, Lisa, do you want does it have to be a performance? Like, do you want performance footage? And I said, okay, like, what is the next part of that question? And he said, well, I really want to do something special just for you. But if you tell me you just want, me band, we'll figure out how to do it. And I said, I think you as an artist would know how you want to present your art. So just let me know how long it's going to end up, how much time you're going to end up needing. And that he asked if he could pre-record. He did. It was beyond anything I've ever seen. And the messages that we received, people were just so, that was an art piece, and it was incredible. And, what he did. And then, of course, the Milk Carton Kids had a blast, and they were, Devin Gilfillian live streamed. He spoke to Sam in advance and said, basically, I'm going to keep my lighting really low. I want this to be as intimate, and I wanted people to feel like they are sitting on the floor in front of me, kind of a thing. And that's what he did. So we tried to create, have a situation where whatever the artist needed to be able to present their art, then that's what we wanted to do for them.
And that, I think what you did is so many musicians that we know and that we've talked to have been caught in this, oh God, how do I replicate what I used to do? And I don't know if it just had to do with the curation of the artists, which if so, you deserve the credit, or just the culture of Philly and the way that you set this thing up. But you did what, frankly, all of us should have been doing from the beginning, which was, oh, there are no rules anymore. So I can do whatever I think would be fun. Right. Okay. And because of that, I think you nailed it. Like you created an event that was just something different than, it wasn't watching someone saying, oh, dude, I don't know how webcam.
You're joking about that is painful, Ethan.
Yeah, I know.
But you know what, though? The interesting thing is, from the consumer's perspective, and it's obviously, this is something that you two understand very much. It was to explain, no, this isn't the iPhone in front of the coffee cup. It's propped up. Right. This isn't because there is that sort of misconception. It's they're not all, it's not all the same. It's like the reason you use the platform that you're using. You want the visuals and you want the sound. Right. It's why we did what we did. We have massive, for exactly that reason. But I think, I've been a part of the Philadelphia Folk Festival for a very long time. Let me see. We're moving on 46 years. So it's the preparation H under the eyes, guys. My older sister was very involved, and she took me to like stuff envelopes at the office when I was like 12 or something, I don't know, like a kid. And from there, you couldn't be a volunteer until like a real volunteer and get a real badge until you were, I think, 16, but you could be a gopher. But I got to be a real volunteer. I was very lucky. There was one of the matriarchs, or as I like to call it, our foremothers. We have four fathers and four mothers. Jeanette Yanks, God rest her soul. She said, if you want a real badge, you're going to do real work. And I said, cool, and never looked back. And so I've never missed a year, not since 1974. Have volunteered, and then, got involved with the organization as well, and on the board and such. And then I started to run the event in with the 55th. So this would have been, so I did 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59. This year, 2021 would be our 60th.
Yep.
And I took over programming in 2018.
Yep.
And we were, and the very first year we were asked to take the Key Change Pledge for gender parity, not just on the stage, but behind the stage. I bring all this up because I'm very proud of what I've done. I'm very proud of but it's not me. I mean, I've 2,300 volunteers that I am lucky enough to work with. And they come to meetings and they hear me I have a very specific expression. The first time they hear it, they laugh. Afterwards, they get it. And that is, a fish rots from the head down. And here's the deal. I don't ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do. And I have pushed cars out. The mud, I've walked a fence, and I've done it as the festival director. I have jumped in because that is that community.
Yeah.
So there's always been discovery at the festival. The festival from the very first, there were Canadian artists at the very first. Bonnie Dobson was at the very first folk festival, and there's been, gospel, and there was Theodore Bickel, and we've had, it's been what you spoke about earlier, which is, being able to have, folk music. So all music's folk music. At some point in time, there was the belief that we couldn't compete. And so we actually had competition. And so, when that happens, you change your programming. And we had outside programmers, and it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't as good a fit. And I think having a native daughter come in, which is me, and basically have the conversations, it has been helpful.
So along those lines, and I completely appreciate, no organization succeeds due to a single human being, and the ones that do are generally doomed to failure at some point.
Hit by a bus syndrome.
Yeah. But that being said, I want to say I got pulled into this community when I was 13 at the Me and Me Coffee House in Marblehead, Massachusetts. And I started volunteering in the kitchen, and then the door, and then doing sound. And over 27 years, I think outside of being a DJ, I think I've technically done every job there is to do, including booking a festival stage, what we do with Falcon Ridge. And that being said, 2018, your first year as programming lead, I can't remember if I had the conversation with you in 2018 or 2019, but I remember sitting down with you and basically saying this was a masterclass. Like we professionally went to folk festivals. That was our job when we were touring. And I say that only to say, like, I've been to a couple of festivals. I've seen ones that work and ones that don't. And invariably, a lot of the ones that work do so through safety, through knowing that these are the big enough names that everyone's going to like, and because everyone likes them, we're good. And, work done. And it's not that I don't think you got bands that worked. You got groups that were spectacular straight through, but you pulled a variety across the board that I've never seen on any stage. And particularly the night that was Jazz Preservation Hall.
Oh, Friday night. Oh, sure. Preservation Hall Jazz Band. Sure.
Jazz,
East Pointers. Chawa. Yeah, that was Friday night.
I was sitting there. It was board member, NERFA board member Matt Raymer, Jen, and I, who had been drafted into doing photo work by Kimberly Sinclair.
With the one and only pit queen, Kimberly Sinclair.
Great Kimberly Sinclair. And we're
right.
sitting,
this is Lisa's second appearance on our podcast because she surprise guested.
That's right.
I forgot about that.
We're sitting 5 feet from the stage, and all three of us are just staring at each other, being like,
that was a really incredible year. Friday, each night was very different. That was and then the Sunday night was the David Crosby, Amanda Shires, Margot Price. Yeah, there were that whole weekend. There were like pinch me moments musically, which is a lot of what Philly's, I think, is known for. But I appreciate it. I mean, a tremendous amount of thought goes into it. It's the curation and the programming part I love. It's, we were talking before we went live, and I said, to me, it's sort of analogous to whether or not you're a good cook. Someone who's a really good cook doesn't need a recipe and doesn't really measure. And then when someone asks how you make it, you have to like reverse engineer.
That was me making latkes last night.
Yeah, that's that whole. I often say that the Philadelphia Folk Festival is like Bubby's brisket. You took everybody all the way back. They cut the ends off. So your mother taught you, and her mother taught her, and her mother taught her, and you find out the reason is because Bubby only had a pan this big.
It didn't fit.
Right.
That's my favorite story on tradition ever.
That's our festival has always been about workarounds, and trying to we'll make it Bubby's brisket. We'll just cut the ends off and we'll make it work. It was, I try to make a picture. I try to make a picture of what it's gonna feel like to be in the audience, but also from the perspective of the artist. So for me, it's creating an experience. And I think you kind of said it, where you said the three of you sort of looked at each other. That's what you hope to create. There are some incredible music events out there, and there's opportunities of incredible festivals that have massive budgets, and they can get the biggest headliners in the world. That's not us. We're a nonprofit. We are not underwritten. We don't have massive sponsors or donors. So I'm looking to create an experience that leaves not just the person in the audience saying, that was incredible. I am so glad I'm here. That's the best, like the best hour of my life or whatever, but also for the artist to have that experience, to feel as if they were they were respected, they were well looked after, and that they had the opportunity to maybe connect with other artists that they've always wanted to connect with. the East Coast, our audiences are tough, and they want to learn, but they don't want to be taught. So I'm really good at creating passive learning experiences, and I am very lucky that I get to travel around the world, working with artists from other countries at the behest of their governments. And so I've been able to bring those artists to Philadelphia this past year in a digital capacity, being able to have two phenomenal South Korean artists, ADG7 and Kim Sora, and then also 18 Scottish artists.
Was it Kim Sora who was at the festival in 2018?
Yes, Kim. Yeah, she was incredible, and that was a really interesting situation because I saw her at Mundial in Montreal and was gobsmacked. I mean, she's just one of the most extraordinary percussionists I've ever seen. And you think about, like, how's that gonna go over? That's okay. So I thought, well, let me see. I'm gonna put her on the big stage and we'll see what happens. And she got a standing ovation. People were as blown away as I was seeing her in a venue that held about, I don't know, 300 people tops. So here we had, 10,000, plus people that gave her standing ovation. And so that's been incredible. Having Talisk, who...
Yeah, it was 2018 when I first encountered them. Was it your Thursday night show?
Yeah.
I am thankful for being introduced to a large number of artists thanks to you, but they are kind of the quintessential, like, where the hell did that come from? And I mean that in the most loving way possible. And, in particular, one of the things that Jake and I always sort of talked about as far as our experience on stage and the things that, to me, particularly for the last 2 or 3 years where we were doing Pesky more seriously, and we played your stage and we played the Falcon Ridge and a number of other sort of smaller festivals, is we tried to make a point of whenever we walked out on one of those stages, before we did anything, we'd literally pull each other aside and we'll be like, yeah, this is our life right now. Like, this is a joyful moment of celebration, and it's great to be here. And I don't think I've ever encountered another artist that embodies that as much as Talisk. And seeing those, one of my favorite moments from the festival. Sorry, I was your photographer that year, so I'm going to keep pulling up photos because I can. But
he's been, BBC artist in the UK, Folk Awards Artist of the Year, I think a couple of times. He is extraordinary. He's one of the most extraordinary young musicians. In fact, all three of them, Haley, who's the fiddler, and Graham, who's the guitarist, all three of them, I was lucky enough to meet them actually in Scotland. I saw them play before Graham was with the band. I saw them play, and I got to spend time with Mozen, and he and I have become good friends. His agent or manager, Craig Corse, and I are very good friends. He's based in Glasgow. So, Mozen, what he will do, which is, you've just hit the, he has such a passion for life, and he loves to play so much that it's undeniable. I've seen him play at Tunner in Denmark to massive crowds. I've seen him play in Glasgow. I've seen him play in Ireland. I've seen them play. I mean, they just destroy every audience they play because nobody knows what to expect. And the thing that's so interesting is here in the United States, we're not normally drawn to all instrumental music.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. Talisk, and there's another Scottish band, Elephant Sessions, who they are, oh, hi, Emma. Emma's amazing. Emma is an incredible musician in Winnipeg. Love her.
Yes.
She's amazing.
Met her at Focal Lines last year, actually.
She and her partner Dale, they're just incredible. But they have found a way to take, tunes, which is normally what you think of, anything that's sort of Celtic influence that is instrumental, but they make them songs. So the audience is actually singing the melody line back to them, and it's just to be in a crowd and watch the crowd want so much to let that band know that they're with them, that they're like humming back to them. I mean, it's incredible. But I'm so glad you had that experience. They are, and I'm looking forward to Elephants joining us in person because they're another band. If you've not gotten to see them live, they just melt faces. They're incredible.
And that's really, I love hearing that phrase used in the folk scene, only because I think it's there's a cognitive dissonance that kind of kicks in when you hear it. You're like, no, it works.
No, I mean, he shreds on the concert.
I've seen him destroy his concertina and just like throw it and grab another one.
Yeah, because of Tina. Yeah, he's amazing. They were, and he has said. They came back the next year and played the main stage, and he has said to me, Muslin has said to me, I want to play the Thursday night every year. I want that to be my slot. He wants to be. He said, I'll be your house band.
It was the kickoff. I mean, they did that year in particular, 2018. They kicked off your festival, and they did it in a way that just was stunning.
Yeah, they never let anybody down.
Because I was backstage with you and Justin right before they went on. I think I just watched the end of the set right before them, and Justin was doing that entire like.
Oh yeah, because you've never seen them.
And I was like, okay, so I left backstage purposely so I could go and watch them, and I just sat there gobsmacked. And we shouldn't turn this all into the Talisk is great conversation, but I think it's fair to say Talisk is great, and if you have not seen them, we highly recommend you do. If for no other reason than our charter is celebrating people, places, and organizations that foster community, and what these guys do, what these folks do by way of pulling audiences with them where they go in a very real way is stunning. And I love seeing that come from any performer. But to your point, Lisa, when an instrumental performer can do that consistently, it's just something unique. It's honestly, I can't think of anything like it.
It is really amazing. And, there's a lot of Scottish artists that are really, I mean, we had Skedavor in that same year on Friday night, 2018. And Skedavor, they're Oban, they're from Scotland. Magnificent. I have to say, I mean, we had 18 this year. We had from Creative Scotland, they produced a series called Postcards from Scotland, and there were 18 artists.
Yep.
And it was amazing, from Breege Campbell, who is one of the most stunning pipers, coming from the Isle of Skye, through Tallis, through Elephant Sessions, Siobhan Miller. I mean, the bounty, the oral bounty in Scotland is not to be missed. And I will say also, I mean, the feedback that we got from the survey we sent out, people really loved sort of my passports or my trip around the world on Sunday. It's like, let me take you with me to some of my favorite places. And it was South Korea, Scotland, Ireland, Canada, and of course, Tulsa, Oklahoma, home of the Woody Guthrie Center. And just, and Wales. Amazing music coming out of Wales that you would not expect. It's not all male tenor voice choirs. It's some unbelievable music.
And I think, we had conversations in some of our very first episodes with Randy and Dan from Gangster Grass, and with Vance and a number of other folks that specifically in making more room at the table, opening seats at the table. And I'm using that specific language in that it's not just about inviting the other in, it's about making room for them. It is about inviting them to be part of the experience overall. And that to me was just the amazing part about what you did is I feel like so many times the folk, I think we were getting better at it as a community, but growing up in the folk scene, if you saw a person of color on stage, that person of color was either playing blues or was playing civil rights music. And that was the option, really. And I don't mean that to mean that's all that was there, but that was what the comfort level was. That's what people were like, oh, that's, and I got really used to that as someone going to things, and it was limiting. And when people say things like, well, the only reason we keep doing this is because we don't know any acts of diversity or any acts other than these that know how to do this, the big feedback that we got from Gangster Grass, that we got from pretty much everyone, including Justin, was, well, if people say that, then they aren't looking hard enough. And to go
the truth.
To go back to, why I am so blown away at what you've done is I think you've looked harder than anyone, and you've proven that there are amazing unfound things for your audience and for a larger audience that we all can enjoy. And I really appreciate it.
Well, you know what? It's our job, right? I mean, I am acutely aware of my privilege. I'm acutely aware of my white privilege. I am acutely aware of controlling 8-9 stages in the Philadelphia area, which means that I can amplify voices literally. So in my humble opinion, it is a very easy conversation to have because, and Randy and Dan are great people. I mean, I'm mad for Gangster Grass, and been, very lucky to have seen Wrench, many iterations of the band to where it is now with Dan and Pharaoh and, and Wrench and Randy and Dolio, and they're incredible. And even the commercial they just did with our good friend Sarah Larson in, fronting it for rye whiskey, I guess. That being said, you can't make a decision about somebody without them, right? So you involve people in the conversation that need to be in the conversation. So it's what we talked about earlier when, I said, you know best how to present your art, and for me to say, I'm going to tick this box off right now. Let's see. Ooh, I get a 3 with this artist because, let's see, non-binary, person of color. Oh, I'm like, ew. How about, what would you have any interest playing our festival, and who would you love to be on the bill with? And then that gives me, I have, look, we had 169 people from 8 countries, 69 brilliant artists from 8 countries join us this year. But I had conversations with some of those artists and just said, is there someone you would really like me to consider? Maybe I'm not aware of, or maybe I'm thinking, I'm having that internal dialogue saying, oh, they wouldn't want to play the festival.
Well, that's the humor of the situation is, I recently, in the programming committee that puts together content for the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance, we realized that historically speaking, that particular subcommittee had primarily always been driven by presenters. It was a panel that was, 5 to 6 presenters and me, which I don't know what I technically qualify as. Ironically, I qualified as the kid straight until I was 38, at which point I was like, guys, we got to stop it with the kid thing. So any other musical genre, I'm not the kid, I'm dead.
Jake, it's 5 to 6 presenters and an Ethan.
Yeah. So, but as that went through sort of the reformation of that organization, I kind of went in the other direction, which specifically with the thought process of every good musician that we've ever played with is as hungry as anyone to discover great new music. Mm-hmm. And because of the nature of being a musician, we also know a good number of presenters because that's the only way we get paid. So we kind of went in the other direction, and it has turned the formula that we started with. It sort of turned it on its head, but for the moment, seems to be in a very healthy way. So I'm enjoying sort of seeing that. I don't know.
No, I like that, and I think look, it's been a lot of years. I used to sing opera with the Savoy Opera Company till I lost my voice. I've done backing vocals, blues, rock, all that kind of great stuff, but never would I say that I was an artist. But I understand. I understand what it's like to maybe not be treated as well as I would have hoped to have been treated in whatever the circumstances in my life. And I, kind of that imprinted on me, and I never want to be in a situation where I don't consider, how can I create the best possible experience for this human being. And I feel very, very blessed to be in the situation that I'm in and to be able to do that. You would have seen, had the festival taken place in person, you would have seen a Finnish bluegrass band this year, who are Frigg, who are phenomenal. They play Nordgrass. I was lucky enough to see them in,
That's a thing?
Nordgrass. Yeah.
Wow.
I saw them in Finland, and then also in Scotland. And it was just, they're incredible. I have this, like, in my head, I wanted to do this juxtapositioning of Gangsta Grass, Free, which is Nordgrass, Che Appalachia, which is Latin grass, because what that does, and then front country, because you're talking about, in each case, phenomenal musicianship that you can't put them in a mold. You can't say, oh, let me label that with the gangster grass. Let me label that with the genre. I mean, that's what they've done. They've blown it up. And I think, you know, it's like when the Hillbenders took Tommy and created a bluegrass rock opera, you know,
Right.
out of it. People who were just like, oh, I don't know about bluegrass. Like, I don't need the twangy and the, you're like, just, oh, it's Tommy. Oh, okay. I'll listen to it now. And then their mind is blown. Well, Gangsta Grass does that. I mean, to have the NCs with some, I mean, Danny Whitener, I mean, I'll embarrass him. He's probably, in my opinion, he's probably one of the most, if top 3 banjo players in US right now. He is, and he, I mean, he has zero grasp of how talented he is. I mean, he is an amazing.
Those are some of the best, aren't they?
and talented across the sphere. Like, it's not just banjo. He's a hell of a writer, hell of a singer.
Yep.
He has a song that I have on a couple of playlists, and I swear every time it comes on, I do one of these. Wait, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then I look at it and I'm like, oh, Jesus, it's Dan. And it happens every time he comes out. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
He's incredible. And he's just, I mean, literally the sky is the limit for him. Just really amazing. And that's part of, that's one of the things, I mean, you get to know him as, like Dan, like he's on the board with you and he's your friend and da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And, I've gotten to watch him go from being kind of awkward to like, unbelievable performer. Like he's, you don't normally say poised with a banjo player, but he is. He's
You're saying that to a guy that chose an accordion player as his music partner. So
okay,
I
you
get
understand what I'm saying, right? But it
chose, but turned his music partner into an accordion player. I just want to be clear. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, right. Yeah. Well, there should be more accordion music for sure. There's some amazing Finnish accordion.
Oh yeah.
We joke about it. That being said, I am incredibly thankful for what I love that Jake has figured out about the accordion that no other accordion player I've heard has figured out is if you like classic rock music, all classic rock music has pipe organ in it. And he can pull off a classic rock pipe organ on an accordion that will make people think that they are listening to a classic rock piece of music. And I've never heard anyone else do it that way. I've never, and he, it's fun watching him play with other accordion players because you'll see them every now and again being like.
You remember being in in that accordion shop, actually, speaking of Philly, in Liberty Bellows in Philly, and bringing in an accordion. I think I was trading one in and trying to trade up or something like that. I remember going in there, and because I taught myself the accordion, nobody ever told me what I couldn't do with it. And going in there, and it's the blessing and the curse of teaching yourself an instrument is that nobody told you how to play the damn thing, but nobody told you how not to play it. And so I went in there and got a vibrato out of the thing. And at least a couple of people came out and they were like, how are you doing that? And I was like, I don't know. I do this and then the sound comes out. And they were like, wait, but I think they said something like, you're not supposed to do that. And I was like, well, nobody told me that. So
accordion etiquette.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the interesting thing about, about sort of about blazing your own path is, well, nobody told you not to. It was funny earlier when you said something about the challenge and the competition. The thought that occurred to me is, oh, dear Lord, please tell me nobody told Lisa that there was something she couldn't do, because this is just not going to end well for whoever told them that.
Well, there's a funny story about how I ended up doing the programming for the folk festival, which was never supposed to happen. I was overseeing the marketing and had been for quite a few years. That's my background. And we had out professional talent buyers for a while. Prior to that, we had volunteers that did a stunning job. I mean, it was probably it was critically and balanced, and people felt, I mean, it was a folk festival. You didn't feel like you were getting, too much of this or too much of whatever. And, the battle cry was ever, you'll never get crap for who you did program. You'll only get crap for who you didn't. Right. So, but like I said earlier, we had competition. So we brought in outside, quote unquote, professional talent buyers. Mm-hmm. And 3 years in a row, I mean, I would be in all the programming meetings, and there would be a lot of talk about, and not a word of a lie, well, this so-and-so ticks off more than a couple of boxes. That would be the language that this person would use. And I would try not to be like, so for 3 years in a row, I suggested a particular artist that I thought needed to be on our stage, watching their growth, amazing artist, really felt very, very important. And the third year I suggested, this talent buyer turned and looked at me and said, and the person that I wanted, the artist I wanted him to program is a lovely woman of color, extraordinary musician. And he looked at me and he said, Lise, when are you going to wrap your head around the fact that folk is white, male, and middle-aged? She's good for maybe 300 tickets, not worth the money, not going to program her. So I fired him.
I'm most impressed that he thought middle-aged was the right description, but that's.
I have to mention, in terms of bringing artists outside what you would expect. Unfortunately, one of my few experiences at Philly, but was there and watched Lyle Lovett on the main stage, and then you decided to follow Lyle Lovett with an artist. With an artist who we've mentioned on this podcast before. And you had found her in a room at a folk conference. Ethan and I were both there. There was a lot of whiskey flowing, and blew us away. She blew all of us away, and she's just a phenomenal talent. And you decided to follow Lyle Lovett, an internationally renowned artist with Irish Mythin
band.
What's that? And his band.
And his band, his full band.
A large band,
the main stage closing set.
With Irish Mythin. And, it's certainly a testament to your booking prowess, but we all knew this was coming, that Lyle finishes, and I swear to God, 20,000 people went, Irish who? Yeah, I'm going to beat the rush, and I'm going to go home. And then she came out on that stage by herself. This 4-foot nothing little woman, and the accent matches the name, for the record, and started singing. And we watched, I don't know how many thousands of people go.
It was so much fun.
Lemmings
what?
Came back.
And they came back. And if anyone had told you, I feel like if you'd asked anyone about booking Irish, nobody's ever heard of her, Mythin, after Lyle, international artist, Lovett, they would have said you're out of your goddamn mind.
So I wasn't programming the festival then, but I insisted, I insisted that she be programmed, and I met with quite a bit of resistance. And rarely, if ever, and you both know me on a personal level as well. I say, I rarely put my tiara on and say, yeah, I'm the boss and it's going to happen that way. And so I was in that room with you, totally JBL speaker, head blown back moment of seeing Irish for the first time, but not just the incongruity of a person who's got a 10-foot voice and a 5-foot body, but everything, the
stature, the poise,
yes, she is an entertainer, unlike any other. I mean, she's really extraordinary. Anyway, and so long story short, she had a lot of time getting her visa. And so we were notified by her agent at the time on Tuesday, pre-fest, that Irish's visa had not come in, and she was closing Saturday night after Lyle Lovett. And so it basically came down to that was in the time where you could go to a congressman or a senator and ask for help. And Andy Braunfeld, who works with us, is a phenomenal lawyer. He's part of the programming and production team. He called me and he said, look, I know you like this woman, but I think you're just going to have to, it's not going to happen. And I said, no, it is going to happen. And he said, look, it's like Wednesday now, if we don't hear something, there's no way you're just going to have to deal with this. And I think I said something like a little vulgar. I don't know if I can repeat it. I don't know the age.
Here's
the thing. We advanced for a week, and because we advanced.
Great. I said, I don't care who you have to blow. She's going to be on that stage. And so she called me in I don't know what the hell hour and said, Mama, I made it across the border. And so she went to the hotel, and, obviously the rest is her story. But when I called and we told her agent at the time, the slot, he wanted to know the slot. And I said, he called me and I said, Saturday night, I'm going to have her close out the night and on the main stage. And he said, oh, can you tell me who else is on that night? And yeah, I mean, and they had done a nice job. And I was like, oh yeah, she'll go on right after Lyle Lovett's large band. And so I hung up from him, and my phone rang, and it was Irish. And she said, are you feckin' nuts? Like that. And I said, I'm sorry. And she said, you want me to go on after, you want me to, and she didn't stutter, but I'm trying to remember what she said. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, you don't think you can handle it? And she said, oh, of course I can handle it. Don't be. And I said, then I have no idea why we're having this conversation. And I hung up. And of course, all the pre-press I did when they would say, who are you the most excited? I would say Irish Maiden, and people, to your point, Jake, would say, who's a what? Like what? And I said, you're not going to believe it. And I got letter after letter after letter from people in media that said, thank God I didn't leave. Thank God I listened to you. Yeah. She was amazing. But yeah, I mean, we had the same thing happen. Every now and again, I would say it's really important. I think it's really important we have this particular artist. I would not often win, but I won with Irish and Jake Shimibukuro.
Oh, wow.
And Jake,
fight for him.
And Jake, we had Jake several.
Yeah.
Jake was on Friday night, and he again, similar experience in that you have a 20-foot talent in a like normal size. I mean, he's like, I don't know, 5'9",
Oh, yeah.
5', whatever. He's not a huge guy. Comes out, there's one stool center of that gigantic stage, and he played
ukulele,
Ave Maria on the ukulele and destroyed the audience. Nobody was breathing. To the point where like none the vendors at the top of the hill, people were like, they were like trying to watch him. You could hear a pin drop. He so commanded the audience, and they were all right there. And you see, I've been lucky enough to see artists like that, and you just know that you cannot wait. As you were talking about with Talisk and with Irish, you can't wait for people to experience them. I had that with Alash and Shodika. I couldn't wait for the audience to see them together, a beatboxer with Tuvan throat singing, and I couldn't wait. I mean, there's just so many that I've been lucky enough to see that it's just like, I can't wait for you to see how great this artist is.
And it's funny, I was going to ask earlier, what is as a presenter, because, if you're an artist, what's the payoff? Well, the payoff's the connection. It's the applause. It's the people who, a song has meaning for. And I was going to ask, kind of what the payoff is as a presenter, because you have a different perspective than, the people who come on here that are primarily artists. Is that one of the payoffs for you? Is the, oh man, wait till they get a load of Irish or whatever it is?
It's funny. My husband has asked me, why do, in the past, like, why do you do this? Like, I have 10 days, I don't sleep, and it's the round the clock, and I have stood on the top of the hill, and as the crowd has just they're dancing or they're screaming, they're so excited, and it's like there's a bubble. Everybody is having that same moment at the same time. And I said, that's why, because you get to help be the architect of a moment that people are not going to forget. And on both sides of that experience, for that artist, it's like the first time you hear somebody, and then it's like, you're talking about Irish, and you're like, you can't wait to tell other people about her. And I feel that way about, I just juried. I'm so honored that I'm asked to jury awards in a lot of times in other countries as well as here, but it is so rare that, I'm listening I've got the headset on, and I'm listening for Song of the Year, and I'm multitasking, thinking if whatever is coming in to my ears isn't captivating enough to have me stop doing something else, it's not Song of the Year. Might be good, but it's not Song of the Year. And I get to I don't know, I guess it was the 12th. There were 16 in this submissions in this group. And I was, oh my God, what am I hearing? Took the headset off, unplugged it, stopped, took it back to the beginning, wanted to hear it again. I listened to that song 7 times because I wanted to know, was there going to be a moment where this artist lost me? And she didn't. And I cannot wait for the rest of the world to know about. This woman's going to be a massive, in my humble opinion, going to be a massive star. And that's a thing. You just get like, you have those moments. Her name is Brielle Ansems, Ansems. And she's from Prince Edward Island, and it is, there's something in the water up there, because the people, that's where Irish lives, and the East Pointers and Catherine McClellan. And there's just some of the Gordy McKeeman. There's some of the most extraordinary musicians on that island. But that is the payoff for me, to then say, at some moment in time, like I'll often say when I do mentoring, I want to help you get to a place where I can't afford to buy tickets to your show. That's
goal.
what I want to do.
As the presenter, that's a good goal.
I really want you to be like in a place where I'm like, you sold out in like an hour. I never got tickets. Sorry, that kind of a thing. That is so incredible to me, that we have that ability.
Yeah.
And you use it to such just wonderful, and that's, I think there's something really special about, and it's something that Jake and I we learned from you in some ways, when we started putting the lounge stage together. We actually went out of our way, because people don't buy tickets to the lounge stage. They buy tickets to the festival, and then
very interesting.
We're kind of the bonus that you get along with it. Even though we generally book our stage before the actual festival books their stage. We don't announce it literally until the week before, because our entire goal is we want to train the audience to just trust that whatever we put out there, they'll enjoy.
Right.
I don't want people coming because Vance Gilbert's playing. I want them coming because Vance Gilbert's playing, but I also want them coming because I want to see the stage. And that's, I think, when you're talking about using professional talent buyers, I think that's a disconnect that I kind of see in the professional side of the music world versus the folk side. And not to say that folk isn't professional, but you know what I mean when I'm sort of driving in that direction, which is I'm purchasing artists to sell tickets, as opposed to I am cultivating the best goddamn show that anyone could possibly see.
And what's the balance there for you, Lisa? And maybe you have an audience that's going to come every year, and certainly you're going to draw more heavily for this headliner or that headliner. But so you've got a lot of built-in crowd, but you also have to sort of play to that crowd. Like, what's the balance there between bringing in the big names, the Margot Prices or whomever it is, or the Lyle Lovetts or what have you, and then also bringing in the Talisks and, introducing folks and challenging your audience?
Yeah, for me, I think that's our job, right? The Folk Song Society is a 501c3. It's an educational organization, and the history of dedicated, it's preserving the past and promoting the present and securing the future of folk music and related forms of expression. That's the mission of the Philadelphia Folk Song Society. So it could be, and one of you said earlier, it's easy. Do you take the safe route and just book the whatever every year who are just stunning musicians, and it's safe? Or do you take a couple of chances? I'm always the one to take the chance, because I'm lucky enough to have seen these artists in Canada. I've seen these artists in the UK. I've seen these artists in Finland. I've seen these artists at Folk Alliance. And, someone once asked me, they said, how program? Like, what do you look for? And I said, I look for that 8-year-old karaoke video that you hope no one will ever see. That's what I look for, because
Ethan, I told you
I
we got
wanna
to scrub our YouTube, man.
because I'll tell you what, what you've submitted or what may be on your website now, if I look at that 8-year-old karaoke video, and now I look at what you want me to look at, is there growth there? You know, and for that, you know, it is, did you find your voice? It sounds pretentious to say that, but it's hard when you're an artist for the author, you know, is your authenticity, has it come through those 8 years? Did you know who you were 8 years ago? Do you know who you are now? And that's also reflected in your comfort and in the performance. So there's a big part of that I look at, but the balance for me, you know what, again, we didn't used to have any competition. There was a gentleman's agreement. You know, there's the before times, which means pre-COVID or pre-45. And then there's the back in the day. And the back in the day, there was a gentleman's agreement. The big promoters in Philadelphia, they went dark the weekend of our festival because they wanted us to succeed. It was incredible. And that's not the case. There are events that will deliberately program against us, that will position themselves so that, you know, we can't get around a radius clause thing. Even if it's a great routing, there's no way to get around a radius clause. So, and I get it. A lot of times it's you know, it's just how the game is played. I feel that getting in front of an artist's ability to build a region or to build an audience or to make a living is, I just think that's shitty, to put it bluntly. So, I mean, I have great, I mean, look, I'm not going to be stupid, but I have great conversations with agents where they'll say to me, look, we have this offer for blah, 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 but it's inside your radius. And I said, you know, is there anything you can do? And I said, well, first of all, you came to me. That's the best. Now we can talk it through and see, you know, what can we do? Can we delay? Can that other offer delay on the ad till, you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing.
Right.
That being said, you know, again, I getting in the way of an artist making a living is insane. But at the same time, our event costs a tremendous amount of money to put on. We depend on ticket sales because we don't have major underwriters. So to do that, I've got to build a very compelling lineup. And it has to be something that you're not going to be able to experience elsewhere. So I like, sometimes it's the diamond ring in the box of Cracker Jacks. It's like, you know, you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Like we love that, that survey question, after the festival. I came to see blank. I left loving blank. Yeah. And, you know, you'll get things like, you know, I came to see, pick something out. Like I came to see Buffy.
I love it.
Or yeah. I love it. I left loving, to your point, Irish Mythen, but yeah. We've had, I left loving, you know, Shodika and Alash. I left loving, we had one year where I think, in fact, this past year, the #1 artist was Tom Rush. Across demographic. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you know. And
you're probably introducing, it's funny, you're probably introducing Tom to a lot of your audience.
It's interesting. That is another experience when when we had the Hillbenders that did Tommy and they were on the camp stage and and they played it start to finish, watching the youngins, if you will, in the audience sing along, knowing that their parents were probably 10 when Tommy was released.
Right.
We've that's one of those. It was like having David Crosby a couple of years ago again, and having the audience sing along, having Graham Nash, and having the audience sing along and look out and see that the people that were singing along were 16, 17, 18, and feeling like, wow, there's hope, because
you're helping educate and continue to tell the story. Back to your earlier point. Sorry, Ethan, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, the same idea. Is you're keeping the line going, and I think there's so much of a history, not just of the art form, but of the stories that are being told, and of the different, the Weavers to the Peter, Paul, and Marys to the why am I blanking on Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, to the different generations as you go through the James Taylors to then the 80s revival, and to be able to continue going back and reintroducing, because that's really what it is to some extent. There's got to be joy in that when it can be done,
tradition, isn't it? That was the Troubadours, right? It's the folk tradition, and that's what you really hope to have happen. And to see we had a year where Cy Khan was there, Kaya Cater, and Sam Gleaves, and they, Cy brought Kaya, and Sam, he was so, talk about non on the elbow of the master. He was so smitten with the two. My gosh, they were both early 20s, I guess, Kaya and Sam, and I think, well, I'm pretty sure he's in his 80s now, and it was just really, and it's like what David Amram does at NERFA every year, where people are just, these young artists are just so thrilled to meet someone like that, and then he sits with them for hours and teaches them things, and he Mike T. Kerr from Canada, who we Wegs, who we love so much, Mike, David taught him some like Django Reinhardt, I think, and Mike, and Wegs was like, David Amram, you see moments like that and you think, okay, that's what it's all about.
Do you have some of that culture with the established artists at Philly, with that sort of like not passing the torch, like I'm going to pass it, I'm going to let go of it, but in terms of like involvement with newer artists and watching newer artists and things like that? Have you seen that with the more established artists there?
It's sometimes it has to be a bit contrived, but because of the way it's the industry, the way the industry is structured now, there's kind of a force field around a lot of the artists that are coming up now, and so there isn't the, young singer-songwriter with his guitar slung across his back, wandering up the hill and tapping, David Crosby on the shoulder, because David wouldn't be wandering on the hill, kind of a thing. But but it does happen. So for example, David Cross stood in the wings and watched all of Amanda Shires and watched all of Margot Price, and then had asked his TM to ask them to come out and do the finale with him. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I couldn't have set that. Do you know what I mean? Like I was felling, but I mean, I could not have set that up. But there have been, for example, when we had Yola, I was so excited to bring Yola in a couple of years back, and she was incredible. And I thought, I asked if, when I spoke with her TM, I asked if she would do a workshop, and I asked, and I put her with Kaya, because they are both young women of color who are being labeled as Americana, and yet they could not be more different. Right. And so I wanted, and they've never met, so I wanted them to have a conversation, but also just kind of, for the sake of the audience, to maybe help the audience understand that putting these labels is not always a good thing,
right?
You know, I think that was really incredible. But yeah, Jake, we have had situations. I mean, I'll set up workshops where it happens that people who have been playing for years and years, or people that have never met each other, and all of a sudden they want to play together. The key change workshop that I did with. It was Tammy Nielsen, Amanda Shires, and Wallace Bird. And they, you know, that was pretty incredible. And then we had the wheel where we had Christine Lavin, Shirley Nome, Wallace, and
that was so much fun.
Yeah,
that was so much fun.
And then having Steve Poltz, you know, I put Steve Poltz with Shirley Nome. I mean, Shirley was 100% Justin's discovery, Shirley Nome. And he did as you described, the Justin thing, that face when I was going to hear her for the first time. And we put her on called it Midnight Special. And she went on after midnight on Thursday night in the campgrounds. And I kind of went, and he was doubled over laughing, but people just adored her. And so I wanted her with Steve Poltz, and we called it Not Suitable for Children, and put a disclaimer, a parental disclaimer on it. And they egged each other on to how
dirty they could get.
Yeah. And each one of them came up to me and said that was the most fun. In fact, Poltz said I would do that again in a heartbeat. And he's, to me, one of the most brilliant artists out there.
You know, just along the lines of watching the mutual admiration side of what you do occur in real time, doubling back on that night with Jazz Preservation Hall Society, you had Chawa go on first.
Oh, yeah.
And they were they were putting on a hell of a show. And I was as a photographer, I was the one that was running all of the memory cards, because basically what we were doing is we were the only people posting real time. All the other photographers were taking pictures, and they were going to give them back to you at the end of the festival. So I was taking the memory cards of the other two people I was shooting with, running them to the backstage for people to upload them to your socials. And I got about halfway between the stage and the green room, and it was all of the Preservation Hall Society just jamming out to Chawa behind in the most adoring of ways. And the quality of this, like, I literally stopped in my tracks and I was like, I'm a photographer. I should be taking. I'm just going to sit here and watch. I was so.
Yeah, they all know each other. Chawa, that's Boudreaux. Wow. Spy Boy. I mean, that's just, they're gorgeous, amazing. Mardi Gras Indian. They make their own costumes. They're by hand. They're just so much heart. And Preservation Hall Jazz Band the same. I mean, so much heart. And extraordinary musicianship and so much going. I mean, Nolans, there's some music there, and that's a city that's been just devastated between weather and of course COVID and a lot of other things that are going on. There's some really incredible. I've jokingly said even bad music's good music in Nolans. I mean, you walk around the street, anybody playing in the street. It's just they're mind-blowingly good. But that I saw same trip that I saw Kim Sora, I saw Chawa in a tiny little bar in Montreal, and I turned around and I said, I want you to come play our festival, and I promise I'll give you a bigger stage, because he's got the magnificent costume that he's wearing, and they were so gracious and such a delight to work with. That's what we love. We love, you want someone that's going to come and they want to be there and they want to give, they give to the audience gives back to them. They feel well, looked after, and it's just, that's the other payoff. That sort of, you've created that communion, where it all happens because of music.
Yeah. And just in that vein, not only is there sort of that relationship between the audience and the performer that you've cultivated, you've really cultivated a very personal relationship with some of these artists. And sorry, again, I was your photographer, so I could cheat. But there was a moment that year where, I mean, you were literally the mother people were crying on. Yes. There was so much care and beauty in what you were not just cultivating as a presenter, but just in the very human sense of fostering creativity in a real way. And I just, we warned you at the beginning that our show is basically a mutual, it's an admiration society. We bring people here who we just adore. And
I was going to say, I don't want to, I don't want to presume the mutual part.
Yeah, that's why I changed it. Mutual. I was like, no, just adoration. We'll go with that.
Mihi, the photo, Mama Mihirangi is a Maori. She's Maori from New Zealand, and I love that woman so much. She's incredible. She has female haka dancers, and she and her dancers were together. I met them in Montreal at Folk Alliance, and if you were there or you heard about it, I mean, everyone, it was so moving. Everyone sobbing. It was the most extraordinary experience. Watching Mihi and her dancers. Well, her dancers were not able to get past get into the country. So she arrived solo and was very nervous. She called me and said, I understand if you don't still want me. And I said, don't be ridiculous. Anyway, there's it's called a hongi, where you put your heads, we put our foreheads together and we breathe in with each other. And that's what, because she was so nervous, I wanted to properly welcome her and let her know that it was a safe space for her, and that she would be loved and appreciated. And she was.
And she was.
Really was.
And she really was. So along those lines, we talked about sort of all the history of what you've done, particularly in the last couple of years. But you let's not rest on your laurels, because I know you don't. I know you got stuff coming up.
It would be very comfortable resting, but yeah.
Resting. Yeah, well, with the Folk Song Society, because of the success of our global digital festival, PFF 59, the Folk Song Society board has decided to do Cabin Fever, which is a 2-day festival, February 20th and 21st, using the same platform, the same site that we developed to broadcast the folk festival. And it will be, it's basically the 6-month mark before the folk festival. And I think, we used to do a Cabin Fever festival many years ago, and it's had many iterations where it is, I don't know if I want to go this way or this way, where we've done all kinds of really great. It's an interactive, very often interactive event. So this, again, it'll be Saturday and Sunday, 3 stages. One stage, we're going to have workshops and panel discussions, and also, of course, headliners and musicians, international musicians. And I've just started. I've moved my whiteboard out of frame, so you can't see my magical list of people that I'm looking at. My recipe for Cabin Fever, but I'm really excited about it, and thank you for running. Where to get more information. It's the Folk Song Society is got the tickets incredibly inexpensive right now. I think they're like $35 for Folk Song Society members and $40 for non-members, and that's going to be until through Christmas Day. So, we learned a lot when we programmed the festival. As I said earlier, we had 169 artists from 8 countries. It was 110 hours of curated content. And we thought, people are not going to want to sit through. Yeah, they did. And because what we learned, we had all 50 states, we had attendees, and 85 countries. And Sam just gave us the analytics, and hold on to something. We had 500,000 hits on the website through the festival. 500,000. So people want access to great music, and I'm so proud of the Folk Song Society, and particularly, again, the leap of faith with the board for giving Justin and I the ropes to hang ourselves, the lead to go out and do this, but also the artists and the agents and the managers to say, okay, we know you're going to make us look good. And it was the other way around. They made us look good. So I'm super excited about Cabin Fever. And then, of course, my other love, I am so honored. I'm the president of Folk Alliance International. And this year, in place of our annual in-person conference, Folk Alliance will be hosting Folk Unlocked, which will be a 4-day virtual conference, and it will have panels and workshops and showcases and affinity and peer group meetings and exhibits and networking and mentorship. And thanks, Greg Klima. You're pretty great too. And I'm really, this is incredible. You talked a lot about it being about community, and we are forced to be apart right now. And this is a way for us to be together. And I am so I'm so appreciative of what you and Jake are doing with the podcast, also what the Folk Song Society has done with the festival, also with our, the digital venue, using that same platform now with Cabin Fever. And Folk Alliance, we made a decision as a board in April to cancel our in-person festival, conference, which would not have been until the following February. But it was like being prescient. I mean, it was unanimous. We had this, really deep, thoughtful conversation, the entire board, and thinking about how do you, the hope was we would be post-pandemic by February. But even so, how do you ask your community to be in this circumstance after what we are living through? So I'm so proud of Folk Alliance and Angus and the staff, Jen, Alex, Jared, Marissa, Fawn. I mean, they're incredible people, and they're so thoughtful. And basically, a lot has gone into building this conference. There's going to be showcases. There's going to be guerrilla showcases. So I think it'll be pretty cool. And now, right now there's an early bird where whatever you pay to attend the Folk Unlocked, 100% of it will be applied to your ticket for next year. Which is pretty cool.
Amazing.
So, and that's until December 22nd. But there's a lot more information at folk.org.
Well, I think one of the things that, has been great about what you've been doing, we've seen a lot of venues, and this is not a knock on the venues at all, but we've seen a lot of venues that have just been trying to find ways to survive. They've been using virtual as a way to survive because that's what you have to do right now. And, I've had some conversations myself around, okay, with this new virtual, I don't want to say virtual reality because that's not the right phrase, but around this new reality in virtual, let's say that, are there opportunities for a virtual venue or something like that? Like, how do we leverage this thing? And I think that you found this middle ground with Philly Folk, with Folk Alliance it's not just a bridge. The platform that you built for Philly was not just a bridge. You built something that is a vehicle. It's something that when in the after times, when we are able to congregate again, I hope that that you all find a balance, and I don't know what the plan is, to having that in person, but also being able to use this platform that you've built to get out to more people and allowing people that can't attend to still be a part of the community and appreciate the music, enjoy the music, and use it, for you to use that platform in that way.
Absolutely. When the seatbelt sign comes off and we're free to move about the planet again, without question,
I like that.
Without question, we will continue to use a digital component for exactly what you said, Jake. We received so many notes, so many emails from people that said, oh my God, I used to live in Philly, or I used to go to the fest all the time, and now I live in Alaska, California, wherever. And it was so great to be, my own sister lives in Fort Worth, Texas. She's the one that introduced me to the festival in the first place, hasn't been able to attend for decades, and was able to be at Fest this year. But more importantly, this allows us to address accessibility issues, which you've both been to that site. The site is not particularly forgiving. No. It's, I swear that hill gets more steep every year. And people who
can't possibly be us getting older. It is definitely not that.
Not me. People who are non-ambulatory or can't take the heat, or, there are a lot of people that unquestionably cannot be out in the sun. This allows them to attend Fest. But I think the other thing that I love about it is as I said, we had 85 countries attend. So now think about it from both sides. For me, as a curator or a programmer, we have US-based artists that are being seen by people in Brazil, or pick it, Wales, picking a country that now it's going to be that much easier to expand their fan base. The reverse of that is it'll help me continue to bring in artists from other countries, showcase them to our audience without them having to worry about the visas, the travel expense, and so on. Yeah. So I think it's going to allow for a lot of, as you said, Jake, I think it's going to allow for a lot of leveraging, and it's going to make things a lot better, and it's going to just help us continue to widen the tent flap, and for the house that it's like our folk family is international. How do we congregate? This is how.
And I'm interested to see what that meld looks like. We had on a very micro level, we had that, we had an artist on the lounge stage this year that we probably wouldn't have been able to get down here from Canada and all that. And then we also had an artist from the UK that was supposed to be here, the Black Feathers. They were supposed to be here. They were supposed to play.
I love them.
Oh, they're fantastic.
They're
yeah. And they couldn't play our virtual stage because they were 5 hours ahead and couldn't disrupt their neighbors at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I've talked to Ray about doing digital, and we've talked about that. They're incredible. They're formal at NERFA a few years back.
2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
real.
They're very special, and
they are.
I am. What I'm excited about with all of this is there are a younger generation of artists who are making a living, not making money, like making a living using virtual platforms. Mm-hmm. And there are younger artists that started this years ago. And our community on the whole has kind of treaded at a distance, really jumping into online streaming. And, we better not use YouTube because that's what millions of people use. Let's use Concert Window because that's just a couple thousand of us. Just these decisions where we would continually eschew the proven systems that literally were money makers for people in favor of our own sort of home built things. And, there's good and there's bad. And I don't mean to say one is bad and one is good, but I think coming out of this, the artists that have grown Patreons, where now all of a sudden they have a couple hundred people supporting their creativity as they go. I think, we had a conversation with Ellis Paul back in the first season about the fact that he likely isn't going to go straight back to 200 gigs a year when this is all
He's a genius. He is one of the best marketers I have ever.
Unquestionably.
Ellis is, talk about somebody that can teach a master class.
Unquestionably. But the conversations that we were having with him, both during the podcast and a couple in private, just you try to look at things from the optimistic standpoint, and he sort of hit the nail on the head. He was like, listen, if I do a good job here in this time and I set up an income stream with Patreon and I set up a standard quick route to manufacturing, whatever my merchandise is, while all this is happening, when we get back on the road, A, I'm not going to have to be back on the road as much. And B, I'll probably be making more money than I was before. And I love seeing artists embrace it from that perspective. And I don't mean to diminish the challenge of it. And I don't mean to say, well, it's easy. And, I occasionally, I know I come off as a little anti-curmudgeon-y, because there are moments where I'm just like, yes, you're gonna have to get a cell phone. Like there are just those moments where I'm sorry, we can't go back to the Rolodex method. But there is so much good happening, and you guys, I think, just hit the nail on the head in a way that inspired a lot of artists. I mean, I remember talking to a lot of the folks, not just that you presented at your festival, but who were watching your festival. And all of a sudden you had artists go from, I can't do this, to maybe I can do this. So
yeah, I appreciate that. I've been doing, I told you about this offline. There's a program called Global Music Match that was, it's a pilot that was put together by Sounds Australia, Showcase Scotland, and the ECMAs. So, and it involved 96 artists from 14 countries. There were 16 coaches. I was one of the coaches. So my team of 6 artists were from 6 different countries. And it was so interesting and countries that were in different levels of accessibility or mobility, in the sense that my Melbourne artist was in complete lockdown, but my Taiwanese artist was playing gigs to 2,000 people, and it was like that. And so it was so interesting to see people's I can't bias. Yeah, I can't start to give way to, can you show me how to do that?
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say, that what Sounds Australia, what they did with this Global Music Match, which there is a public access to the website, and it's just mind blowing what happened. They put together an artist toolkit where to kind of teach in sort of easy step-by-step, as you were saying, hey, does anyone want a tutorial on StreamYard? I can do. Well, it was a tutorial on how to do like cross-posting and how to do for socials, and artists that are like, yeah, I don't really want to deal with Twitter. I don't like Twitter. It's like, no, here's what we're going to help you do. And then watching collaborations come out of that, and watch an artist in Australia do a magnificent collaboration with an artist in the Midlands of England, and edit it together, where it seems, I mean, they're literally, it's like what's happening right now, but it appears as if they're split screen. And I mean, it took a lot of editing, and then to have the same thing happen with this incredible Icelandic artist. His name is Svavar Knutar, and he's amazing. And with a UK artist, with Lucy Ward, and just watching what happened with all right, I can't be afraid of doing this. I'm going to have to try. And I think, because, to put it bluntly, the US is not really on a lot of people's top of their tour list right now. If you're an artist from another country, they're not thinking about coming here for many reasons.
Yeah.
Using platforms like this is going to help build fan bases, but is also, I think what is happening is artists are having to really explore ways to deepening their relationship with their fans, more beyond the like, this is great, I've got 10,000 followers and they're in 18 states and 47. It's like, no, I'm going to concentrate here, and I'm going to release this single, but I'm only going to make it available in this geographic area, the download, and I'm going to tee it up, to see what's happening. And it's brilliant. And it's all it is using the same thought processes that you were outlining that Alice is. It's like being very strategic, getting things set up, and thinking long-term and bigger picture. And I think that I'm hoping that is what will come out of this for artists, that they will realize that there are people out there that want to help them. And it's like, not, what is that expression? It's not for naught. It's not for naught. Right. At least that's my goal.
I agree. And I think just from the strict artist perspective, we're also seeing some really funky and interesting cross collaborations between people that never would have. Chris Matthews and Heather May, good friends of the podcast. Their sort of theme for the pandemic was 6 Feet Apart, and great tune. But it got picked up by a Finnish accordionista, Johanna Jahula, if I remember.
Oh, Johanna Jahula.
Yeah.
She's funny.
Ethan, how did you pronounce that? How did you mispronounce that? Come on.
Johanna Jahula. Well, you have to know that
I am shocked when I pronounce my own name correctly. So, but they put together a video, and it's stunning, and it's awesome, and it's so thoughtful.
Johanna is who I was thinking of when I said, wait till you see some of these Finnish accordion players. Johanna Jahula, there is incredible artists in Finland. When I was in Tampere last year for Womex, and I did mentoring sessions with all of the Finnish artists who were showcasing at Womex, and they did not all speak English. And I can say thank you and order coffees. So it was an amazing lesson in humility, because we had to be really patient with each other. But it was the most extraordinary experience to spend time with artists and like that. And Johanna is amazing. She's amazing.
Absolutely. Lisa, I just want to thank you so much. I enjoy picking your brain, B, just having a chance to sit down and just celebrate. Like, this has been a year where it's difficult to look at this year and think of things to celebrate, but you yourself have given us quite a few.
Yep.
And thank you for that. It's it means a lot.
Well, thank you. I mean, who would not want to sit down with or without a bev, with you two, with my good friends, and just, talk about the stuff that we love, which is music and artists and helping musicians and, this, and our community. How do we keep our community? How do we keep people connected? And, there's been this meme that's been going around about, we're not all in the same, we're all in the same storm, we're not in the same boat or whatever. I look at it a little more like this. Not everybody can swim, but everybody can float. So just if you're tired, just roll over and look up, and it's amazing what that change of perspective will look like. Treading water will make you really tired. Float for just a little while. And I think that, I've been so blessed to be able to help some people stay afloat. And I know that that's really important to you guys too. So thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you, or to be here not with you.
Yeah.
Well, we will. What's that? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is just as good. I feel for all. I get it when people say, Zoom Zoom meeting fatigue and that kind of thing. Like, I get it
Yeah.
conceptually, but the truth is, like, those have been a lot of the highlights of my year have been through Zoom and video things. So
Yep.
I get it, but at the same point, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me, so to speak. So thank you for helping brighten our day, our night. Technically, I don't know what you call it, but it honestly, I love these conversations, and every one of these conversations I've had with you, with Kimberly, with all of our friends from the folk scene and outside of the folk scene, like, it's just getting me more and more jazzed for what we'll be able to accomplish on the other side of this.
Yeah,
I think you're right, and I have so much. I have so much faith in each other, and also in us, our community, taking care of each other. And I do think that there's going to be, well, first of all, there's going to be a lot of awkwardly long hugs, but
we had lots of those before.
Yeah,
there were lots of those.
Yeah, but I also,
as opposed to,
I know, right? But yeah, I love that. It's like, oh, I'm a hugger. It's like, yeah, I'm not. No. But I think to your point, there is going to be so much good that comes out of this. I was asked this great question by a gentleman from Sounds Australia. He was interviewing all the coaches, and he said, what is the one thing that you hate, obviously, about the pandemic, obviously, other than, the sickness and, the death and that sort of feeling? And I said, it's kind of how Dickensian it is. It's like it's brought out the worst in people, I mean, just absolutely. But it's also brought out, the best in people, but it's really just brought out the worst in people. And, their masks are off. And he said, all right, conversely, what is the one thing you love about the pandemic? And I said, it's brought out the worst in people. And it's like, now you're looking at your instinct, where you said, I'm being paranoid. Now you're like, no, I knew they were rotten. Now I know they're rotten.
Now I know.
I don't have to have, it's like,
yep.
It's people's masks are off. And I think it's really Awkwardly Long Hugs. That's a great name for a band. Yeah. I think it's going to be one of the things that comes out of it. I was on a Zoom call with Jamie Leslie from Skyline, and I said, and who I adore, phenomenal. He's Gangsta Grass's agent. Mm-hmm. And I said, how you doing? And he said, pandemic average. And I thought, okay, that's brilliant. So we have pandemic average, pandemic below average, and pandemic above average. So I would say that this has been a pandemic above average evening. And
good.
For that, I thank you.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Unquestionably.
Lisa, thanks so much. Everybody, check out folkfest.org for the Philly Folk Festival. Folk.org/unlocked is Folk Alliance International's virtual festival that's coming up. And folkfest.org has the Cabin Fever virtual festival coming up in February.
Yeah, they're back to back. The Cabin Fever's 20 and 21, and Folk Unlock Conference is 22 through 25. So just get them jammies on and off you go.
Time to order the special onesie just for the week.
You're folksy. Yeah.
There you go.
No question that Justin hasn't thought of it and or potentially started merchandising.
He has. Of course he has.
I think the notion of him only having one is the only thing that's like after his 28 T-shirts at the festival last year.
Yeah, well, he's got more costume changes than Cher, so we'll just leave it at that.
Oh man!
All right, my
Lisa,
friends.
thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
See you soon.
I hope so.
It means the world to have you here.
Oh, likewise. Love to you both and to your lovely families.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
I am so pleased. That was so much fun.
Great. Yeah.
I'm also pleased that it didn't cut her off as I was having her exit the room, which I've done to like the last 7 guests. It's like, bye. But the problem is we need to work on it because I feel like most of our guests have like the awkward end of the phone call. It's like, all right, bye. Bye. Oh, okay, bye. And it just doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna feel like you hung up on them. But I appreciate it. That was a really great conversation. Lisa's just one of those people that there's a lot of folks in the folk scene that kind of look at what we do and say, well, why would you want to have more than a 200-person menu? Or, like just there's a romanticizing of sort of the
small, intimate.
Yeah, the need for it to be intimate, or the romanticizing of the fiscal challenges of it. That every now and again, when someone's like, "No, we can make this work and we can make it good for everyone," comes along, it's like, "Oh, thank you. I needed someone to say that out loud," because and the next person that quotes there's literally hundreds of dollars to be made in folk music line to me, it's gonna make me jump off something.
I think you've oversold it. I think it's dozens of dollars, but
either way, that phrase needs to die.
And I was really excited to have Lisa on tonight because she's one of those folks, because she operates in the background. She's the kind of person that, like, all the artists we know all want to be friends with Lisa. Everybody wants to talk to Lisa because she's got these huge stages, and she's just such a great person to talk to. And, to the point you made earlier, Ethan, about going on a stage and going, holy crap, this is our life. There are also people that I really feel privileged to consider a friend, that we get to have these chats with at festivals, that it's not just business, it's personal, and we get to be friends with these people. And that's why I was really excited for this conversation tonight, because we actually got to share 2+ hours of because for anyone who's wondering, this is really how conversations among the three of us usually go. There's alcohol involved, and next thing we know, it's 4 hours.
Much less alcohol.
There was not as much alcohol tonight, but
it's all right.
Yeah,
sleepy time tea, but it didn't knock her out, so I'm good with it.
No, it didn't.
We kept her with us.
Yeah, we're gonna have to her back. We got a lot more. We didn't even tell really stories tonight, and so I think a little bit more. We'll all have some Kraken rum, and we'll tell stories next time.
Okay, as long as no Bloody Caesars. That's the one I won't.
That's where we draw the line.
Lisa never really pushed that on me. It was the Canadians, but
they
I do want to thank the folks that stuck in with us pretty much from beginning to end. Greg Klima, I know you were there. Where's my deli tray? I don't know who that is, but man, that
might be Kev. I'm not sure, but
the awkwardly long hugs, definitely the name that we should go with. I like it.
Yeah.
We are going to hopefully be finalizing the rest of the season this week, and I think literally the moment I finalize it, I'm just going to announce it. I'm just going to be like, all right,
and then he's going to take a nap.
Probably. Yeah, but so that'll be coming up. We have a holiday show in the works where we are finalizing the details around it, but I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited about it.
Got some great artists committed.
I the joke for a long time in the band was what were two Jews and a free agent was how we described ourselves.
That's right.
Because I grew up nothing. I grew up nothing, and I went to an all-boys private Catholic school, and then I went to a Jewish university. But that being said, I love Christmas. I love holidays. I love everything about the holidays. like across the board. I love Hanukkah. I just love celebration. So I'm really looking forward to trying something kind of crazy, and we'll see what we can make happen. But you'll hear about it in the next couple days, and that'll be fun. Other than that,
on our socials, facebook.com/tribal mischief. We broadcast live every Sunday at 8 p.m. on twitch.tv/tribal mischief. We are on YouTube. It's youtube.com/tribal mischief productions, I think, or something like that.
Nope.
No,
it is youtube.com/tribal mischief.
Yes.
We've changed everything just to tribal mischief. Kept it simple.
So you can find us there, and we post our videos and audio when I get to it. And
so along those lines, it's worth noting that Tribal Mischief, the company, is a company that does video and photo, and as well as event production help with virtual events. One of the events that we're going to be helping out with is later on this week, which you and I'll talk about it. We might actually be broadcasting it to the Twitch channel as well as a bunch of other places. But NERFA has a wonderful event specifically aimed at the small folk club, the places that are doing their best to come up with a new method of presenting stuff as we step forward. And I'm looking forward to the conversation, not just for that community. Like there's the folk coffee houses, the brick and mortar places like Club Basim and Cafe Lena, and those folks. And then there are the church coffee houses, the UU coffee houses that, have been doing a show a week for years and years and years. And then there are the house shows. All of them are looking for ways to get back into the discussion and to contribute. So that'll be a fun thing. So I don't know that it'll be on our channel, but either way, we're going to be supporting it. So you can go check out NERFA on Facebook or nerfed.org, I believe, for more information there. And I think that's all I got.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, in that case, he's Jake Bush on accordion.
He's Ethan Baird, not on accordion. And
have a great week.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, everybody.